Hello, this video is going to be the first video of a little two-part series showing how to make complex selections. So what we have here is a gorilla. This is a photo by Steve Cohen, and what I would like to do is to do something about the background, which is rather busy. So I'm going to show you two ways to do this, although this video will only deal with one way, and then there'll be a part 2 video that will show the second way of doing it. So the first thing I want to do, we've got a couple of highlights in here which I would just like to remove. So we're going to select the clone tool, and we will just select a couple of areas just to clone these out, just to make our job a little easier. There we go. So this first method, we're going to use some calculations to actually deal with this. So what I need to do first is duplicate this layer. Now if we look at the colours in this photo, we've got the foliage in the background, which in colour terms is actually yellow. And then we have the gorilla, which is actually using a lot of blue in there, a lot of blue and a lot of cyan. So what I need to do first, to make a mask for this, which is what I'm really trying to do, we need to get a good contrast out of it. And the first way I'm going to do this is by using calculations. So on the image menu, we have an option here for calculations. And what I need to do is I need to do the calculations being applied to the same layer. And because we've already recognized that the foliage is actually in the yellow channel and the ape is in the blue channel, what I need to do is change these two channels both to blue. Then if we say OK to that, what we get is an alpha channel, which is this thing here, which I'm going to rename to mask so we can just see what it is. And you can see on here we've actually darkened the background quite a lot, but the ape itself is still quite on the dark side as well. And ideally what I would like is to make the ape white and the background black. But the first thing I'm going to do on this is to change the levels. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down the white level. This will have the effect of making the white areas whiter. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this all the way down. The problem with this photo, of course, is not the actual ape itself, nor is it the background. It's the fur. And we need to get a good contrast in the fur. So all I'm going to do here is actually make this quite a contrasty channel, something like that. We've got good contrast on that. Obviously we need to do something about the internal area of the ape, but we'll deal with that in a moment. So let's go back and choose our layer. So what I need to do now somehow is to actually get that this alpha channel as a mask on this layer. And the way we do that is by holding down the control key and just clicking on the mask. I go back to RGB before I go to layers, and then I can add a mask. And so what we've got now is this ape masked. If we get rid of that, you can see we've got a pretty good mask on it. But when we look at this mask, the background is black, so is the ape, and what I really need to do is keep the ape. So I'm just going to select the brush tool here and change my colour to white, and we will select a nice soft brush, and I'm just going to now paint in this area just to make this part of the mask white. So we'll do this quickly around the bulk of it, making sure we don't go too close to where the edge of the fur is, because we're going to deal with that in a moment. So let's try and get rid of as much of this, the actual skeletal part of the ape masked out, and we'll deal with the edge in when we finish doing what we're trying to achieve. So there we've got our ape roughly selected. Let's do something about this foliage. So I'm going to swap to a black brush and we'll just paint this out here. Might need to change the size of the brush, and we'll probably change the feather as well. Make this a harder brush. So all I'm trying to do is get rid of all the leaves and the stalks. Some of this is obviously a little harder than others. But now I'm just clicking around and getting rid of the odd bits and pieces in here. And as we want to get closer to the fur, we'll make the brush a little smaller. Let's go back to the image. I'm going to disable the background just so I can get a better idea of where things are. Now, as you can see in here, we've got a little bit of greenish tone, but we can fix that one later. When we finish doing some work on the ape, we'll do a saturation layer. And this gives me that as a mask. Now, I know it's not accurate all the way around the edge, but as I say, we will sort that out in a moment. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to keep the background. I don't want to keep the ape on this layer. So what do we do with this? Well, we've got our layer 1 mask, which is the one that we really want to keep. I'm going to select this and I'm going to save this as a new channel, which we'll call the refined mask, just so I can keep track of it. I'm going to invert this mask, and then I'm going to apply it. No, I'm not going to apply it because I need to fix it first. Sorry. Get rid of the selection, then I can invert it. That's what I should have done. There we go. Okay, so this is the layer that I want to blur. I can't blur it at the moment because the blur is still going to take effect around the edge here. So what I need to do is I'm going to select the clone tool, make it a little wider, and then we're just going to clone and whoops, I'm doing this on the mask, which is not what I wanted to do. So we're going to apply this mask, that's it, and then we will just clone out in here. We don't need to be super precise with this cloning because oh, wrong button, because we're going to actually blur it anyway and you won't see it. So I'm just trying to get rid of sharp edges because I don't really want those either. And we don't need to be super precise. It doesn't matter if things don't match up. So just make sure we don't get any sharp edges. There we go. So we've now got a background without the ape. And now I'm going to blur this. So we go to the filter menu and we go down to blur, Gaussian blur. And what I want to do, I don't want this to go completely amorphous. I need to see something there. If you make it look completely amorphous, then it doesn't really tie up with the background or with the ape very well. So I'll go with something like that, I think. And now what I need to do is I need to put that mask back on here. So go back to channels and we'll choose my refined mask. I'm going to control click on that, back to layers, click on the layer, and we'll add the mask. And this time what I need to do is I need to invert it because I want to bring the ape back. No, I don't want to invert it. What am I doing? Oh, I need to re-enable the background. That's it. So, okay. So what I need to do now is I need to invert that mask. That's it. There we go. Now I just need to touch up the mask a little bit on here. So we've got a few areas where the background is just bleeding through. So I'm going to paint with a black brush, and I'm going to drop my flow down so I can apply this sparingly. And so all I'm doing now is just clicking and adding this back in, particularly around the areas where we haven't masked it that accurately because of the fur, and that's perfectly fine. And if we need to see that mask again, let's just alt click on the mask so we can get a better idea of where we need to be painting. And if we click back on there, I notice in here there's a couple of areas that just need to be further refined. So again, we'll drop the hardness down. Not all the way, I don't want a very soft brush. Oops, let's just make sure we're painting on the mask. I don't want a very soft brush because otherwise it'll look like it's been cut out with a pair of scissors. That's not what I want. And because I've got a low flow, I might need to apply this several times to actually just disguise where we were. Now, of course, this would be better if I had the original image. I don't have the original image, so we're working on a JPEG. Then the last thing I would like to do on here is to add a hue and saturation layer, because I'd like to tone down the greens in here. So I'm just going to select the color picker tool inside the hue saturation layer, and then we'll drop the yellows down, make those a bit darker, and I might drop the brightness down a bit as well. That also has the side effect of getting rid of any sort of green fringing happening against the edges of the fur here. So that's method one, and it really is as simple as that. From here on, of course, you can do other things. You could add spotlights, vignettes, whatever it is you need to do. So that's method one, and now in the next video we'll look at method two.